Okay, well, hello and good morning again. Thank you all for coming to our webinar. I want to welcome you all, Cloudpoint Geographics webinar on overcoming your fear of ArcGIS Pro. My name is Bill Steele. I handle business development and marketing for Cloudpoint. Jonathan Hodel, founder of Cloudpoint, is going to walk us through ArcGIS Pro, starting with setup and project creation, all the way to creating layouts and map series. And I do want to let you guys know about some more upcoming webinars we have. You can find those at cloudpointgeo.com/webinars. Next week, we've got one on upgrading your enterprise GIS. And then, that should say June 5th. Then starting in June, we've got one about how GIS can help with maintaining your cemetery. If anybody works for a city or department that helps maintain a cemetery at your place. And then middle of the month, we've got another reprisal of our webinar on indoors mapping with ArcGIS Indoors. And then at the end of June, another reprisal of our introduction to parcel fabric in ArcGIS Pro. That was a really popular one last time. So if anybody handles parcels or land records, that's a really good one to check out there. And then, of course, obviously, we're using Zoom for all our webinars. Just to remind you guys, we do question and answers at the end of our sessions, but at any point in time, if a question comes up, you can just submit it down at the bottom there in your toolbar. You got a little Q&A button, just hit that, and you can submit your question. I'll be reading those here at the end of the webinar, and we can get those answered. And then, of course, if anything else is going on, you can't see or hear us or something, just send me a message in the chat. So a lot of you guys have heard of us, but if you're not familiar, we work in a lot of sectors: public works, facilities, I mentioned land records, utilities, transportation, engineering, and even cemeteries. And as a trusted Esri business partner, we help people drive intelligent decision-making using mapping technology. And one of those is ArcGIS Pro, powerful application, and the natural evolution from ArcMap. And to go over that, I'm going to turn the screen over to John.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And excited to have everybody here today. Thanks for joining us. I don't know about you, but I am glad to be back in my office, working from home for a couple months, and now back at it. So we're here to talk about Pro. I know most of you are already in the GIS world, so you will understand many of the concepts. Maybe you have dabbled with Pro, maybe not, but we're just going to open it up here and get started. The exciting thing is we have no slides for you. My presentation is all demo, so hopefully you like that. Get interactive here. So we're going to go with our project here. You see I've got recent projects. Otherwise I could start a new project here. Typically I'm either going to a new project with a map, a blank map, or I'm going to start with just a blank template. But in this case I'm going to go to my most recent one here, overcoming your fear of ArcGIS Pro. So you'll see one of the differences here, we have, of course, you're used to Arc Catalog if you're familiar with ArcMap, and most of my focus today is going to be on making that transition from ArcMap to Arc Pro. That's really what we want folks to get comfortable with. So in order to, first of all, say you have not accessed Pro, you're going to go to My Esri, and under My Organization, you can go to Downloads. And that's where you can download ArcGIS Pro from there. So that's something, if you haven't yet, go ahead and download and definitely start playing with it to get up to speed and get started. As far as hardware requirements, you're going to need something with about minimum 16 gig of RAM is what I would recommend, and then a minimum of 2 gigs for your graphics card. We've been finding those machines, typically a Dell desktop, like on Amazon or somewhere. We've been finding those for around $1,000. That'll get you a really good machine if you need one to run Pro. As far as the licensing goes, I want to just touch on briefly how you would license Pro. It's a little bit different. We're going to go through ArcGIS Online. Here I am on my ArcGIS Online organization. And what I'm going to do, I would go under Organization and then Licenses. And I'm under ArcGIS Pro Advanced, and I'm just going to click Manage. And this is going to show my users, and this shows who is licensed for Pro just with this toggle here, particularly with Advanced. So that gives me the ability to license that So that's how you would manage the licensing as far as the named user. And of course, that is a little bit different with Pro now. You'll see in the top right-hand corner, I'm logged in here. I'm logged in into my ArcGIS Online account. That's where my licensing is pulling from. If I go under project, this is where a lot of the controls are at regarding this particular project. It's a little bit different with ArcMap. We're just used to a single map that we open up. With Pro, it's a project, so I have a lot more options, and I can have multiple maps, as I'll show you here in a minute. Under portals, this gives me the ability to pull in data from several different sources. I can pull in from multiple enterprise accounts, multiple ArcGIS Online accounts, which is what I'm doing here. Gives you a lot of options. So right now you see I'm signed in as Jay Hodel with my email to our Cloudpoint AGO account. So this is for my portals, and I can add portals. I can sign in or sign out there. I can also then under licensing, this is where I can make adjustments to my licensing options here. I can also authorize ArcGIS Pro to work offline if I need to. So in this case, I'm not going to do that, but I can allow that if I need to give that ability. And I can also configure different licensing options for managing those. So under my options, these are specific to my Pro project. You're familiar with ArcMap, where you have the units and all your different options there. That's a similar scenario here. We can go through and set those up for our map, or in this case, our map or our scene, control different things with base maps and whatnot. And this is controlling those items for the entire project. So so a lot of people have been a little hesitant to make the transition to ArcGIS Pro. I always encourage people. It's in a state now where you can definitely start to use it almost full time. I'm using Pro probably 95 or more % of the time, as opposed to ArcMap. But what I would recommend for folks who are just getting started, pick a project or a layer that you maintain and say, I'm going to convert this to Pro, and from now on, I'm going to maintain this layer or this project in ArcGIS Pro, and it'll kind of force you to get into it a little bit more. So I think that's a good way to start out with Pro to get into it, is kind of force yourself to do that. And then you'll find as you learn more and more, eventually you'll be converting more projects into Pro, and you'll be using ArcMap less and less. So let's walk through the ribbons here at the top, the menu buttons. Under catalog here, I've got my options. I can go under maps, and this is where I can have multiple maps. I could do a new map. It's going to create that there, open that up on another tab. So back at catalog, I've got options for toolboxes. Each Pro project has its own toolbox, or you can add other toolboxes in. Here's where I can connect to my databases. So I can add a database, which is basically finding a geodatabase and just connecting to it. It's kind of like the shortcut concept there that we're familiar with from ArcMap. Layouts, I can have multiple layouts here, which is basically just different sizes of paper. If I want to have one of these be 8.5 by 11, another one be 11 by 17, or maybe I want a large wall map, I can add new layouts here, and all these different layouts can reference one or more of my maps that are in my project. We have the different style options we can have there. Folder connections, if I want to access data from a certain folder, I can add a new connection. And then the locators, of course, address locators and customize. You can add things there to your locators. So that kind of is the catalog view, similar to what you're familiar with in ArcMap. In this case, though, let's say what I want to do, I want to start a new file geodatabase, and I'm just going to create one here, and we're just going to call this, we'll call this my, let's call it my city, and we'll create a new file geodatabase for my city. And This is similar, a lot of it, in how we would approach things with ArcMap. In this case, we'll do a new feature data set. And for this feature data set, you'll see in this case, it's coming up on the right-hand side. It's opening a geoprocessing window, and it's going to ask me for my feature data set name. We'll just call it stormwater, and then I'm going to change my coordinate system. In this case, we'll say Illinois, and I'm going to come down and do a state plane. We'll do state plane west. That's where we're at. And I'll click run, and that's going to go ahead and create my feature data set for stormwater. And then once this creates that new feature data set, next we're going to go in here and show you how you would add a new feature class. And we'll come in here to the stormwater, and we'll do new, and we'll give it a second here, and we'll go to new feature class. And again, we're over here in the side view, and we'll ask, or we'll tell it here we want stormwater pipes, and this is going to be a line. And let's go ahead, and here's where I can add my fields, or I can import them from another layer or something that I would have there. So in this case, if I wanted to add one, I could just call it type, and we'll just leave that and go to next. We can walk ourselves through. So this gives you all the typical options you're used to in ArcMap with selecting or creating a new feature class. So now what we'll cover, now that we create a new feature class, we'll see the neat thing is you have some more options in ArcGIS Pro for manipulating and manipulating your schema of your geodatabase. So we can manipulate the domains, which is unique. Now, wherein is in ArcMap, to manipulate a domain, you needed to basically go into the geodatabase in ArcCatalog. Now with ArcPro, the nice thing is you can add and adjust domains just by going to that feature class. That's a really handy function to be able to take advantage of. And that's taking a little longer than anticipated for us. So we'll jump into our layers map. We can come back to that here. Well, maybe not. All right, it's gonna take a little bit for us here. So if it hangs up here, we'll just restart, which is kind of ironic, as I'm going to mention that it's Pro does not get hung up. It's a lot more stable than it was. If you did dabble with it at all in version 1 point anything, it was a little unstable. You would find it crashing some on you, but here we find it very stable at this stage. We're in 2.5, and I think 2.5.1 is out now. So it's in a very stable environment. So here I've got my sewer pipes created. And then what I can do is I can add this to a new map, or I can add to an existing map. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and add this to our map here. And I can actually drag and drop this into my map. So now let's say I'm going to zoom in here. We're going to do a search for Morton, Illinois. And I can come in here with my new sewer pipes, and it looks like it added it twice there. We'll just remove one of these. A lot of the functionality is similar to what you're used to seeing in ArcMap. You got your table of contents over here. You can still right-click on the layers and control many of the different things that way. For editing, so as we edit a new storm pipe, we're going to create a storm pipe here, and let's just come in here and create that line. And again, as you're familiar with, I can change my base map, and we can come into imagery. And the ribbon up top, you get a little different look and feel. It's more of a Microsoft Office look and feel, which is common with ArcGIS Pro. It's kind of what they're going after. But here I just created a new sewer pipe. Now what we'll notice if we look at the attributes, and first of all, I can update my symbology, again, similar to in ArcMap, just by clicking on the line there. And I can update the colors and whatnot. So we're used to seeing this type of interface if we've used ArcMap. So I can go then into my attributes, and we have the Edit tab in ArcGIS Pro, which gives you your options here under the Edit tab. It's still, you have the concept, if you know in ArcMap, you're starting and stopping the editor and you have an edit session. It's similar in Pro, only what you find is you don't have to start it and stop it necessarily. You just have to save your edits. So that is nice. It does enable you to act a little quicker when you need to. So let's say in this case, I want to add another field. Okay, I've got my sewer pipe drawn here. I want to add a field though, and again, we can look at our attribute table as well. Let's pull that down a little. I want to track material type, okay? So I want to add a field called material, and I want a domain. I want a domain to have a drop down for my material types. How I'm going to do that now in Pro is I'm going to select my sewer pipe layer over here in the table of contents. I'm going to go to this tab up here called, this menu called Data, okay? Here's where I can control, you see I have fields, subtypes, domains. What I want to do is click on fields because I'm going to add a field here. And you'll see it pops up at this window down below. This is where it gives me my current fields that are in my feature class. And I want to add a new field, and I'm going to call it material. And we're going to say this data type is going to be text. Okay. Now, here's the nice part, a little bit more convenient. If I can do a new domain, okay, I'm going to have a new domain called material type. And I'm creating this on a fly, which is nice. I'm going to have, we'll call it, let's see, RCP, and we'll call another one PVC, and we'll say CMP, a lot of abbreviations. So we'll throw in, whoops, we'll throw in one that says clay. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that. So we'll go back here. Whoops. And then, oops, you know what we got to do first? I forgot something. Let's close this out. And you're learning on the fly things to watch out for in Pro. So let's do this first. You got to go to your edits. You got to save your edits. Forgot about that. So you're going to save your edits. Then we're going to add, and this is another shortcut to add your field. Rather, I could go to data up top, but I could click the shortcut down here and add field. Now let's say material, text, and then we'll go to domain. And let's go back and let's save that. You'll see the save up here. I'm going to save that field first before I create my new domain. And so what it's doing, it's adding material type. It's going to be a text field, but then I want to add my domain, material type. Oops, if I can spell today. Okay. And let's just add in a couple here, PVC, CMP, and we'll do clay. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to click save up here. This is going to save my domain that I just edited. It's going to save those options. And then I'll see under my field, when we go into look at our attributes, you can see that it's going to have a field called material. And when I click on my attributes, we have our material field over here on the right. And I should be seeing some drop downs here. Let's go check out our fields, make sure we have our domain in there. Material, it didn't catch our domain, so we've got it created, we just need to save it. So now as we go back into our map, we will now see under our edit attributes, there's our drop down for our material. So it's a little different than ArcMap where you had to control your domains from the geodatabase level. Now you can control them directly from the feature class level. So, and if I want to make that change, I'm just going to apply those edits. So another thing, probably what you're really interested in is if you're migrating from ArcMap to ArcPro, let's talk about how we can make that transition pretty smooth. So typically what you find, I'm a GIS user, I'm familiar with ArcMap, I've got a ton of MXDs out there. I want to start to bring my MXDs into Pro. That's that's something that's very, obviously Esri was thinking about that, very easy to do under the Insert tab. And while we're looking at that, let's just walk through the different tabs here. I've got Insert for different options here. I can do new layout, new map. I can import a map, which is what we're going to show in a second. I can go to the Analysis tab. This controls geoprocessing options here. If I had extensions enabled, those would show up, some of those functionalities here. My View tab, similar to what we're used to. We already talked about the Edit tab. Imagery, it has one specifically for imagery. And then Share, we'll touch on that a little later, for being able to publish information to the web and to AGO. And then Appearance is where I would control my symbology or my transparency of my layer. So just wanted to touch on some of those, but let's go back and we're going to import our MXD that we're used to. And let's say I've got a bunch of those, and that's really what I'm after here. I want to import map. So in this case, I'm going to import an MXD that I have here from addressing project I worked on. And I would just click OK. And in this case, I've already done that. So I'm going to go to that addressing project I have here. And you'll see what's nice. They've really improved this functionality with Pro. If I zoom out, I think I've got 50 to 60,000 addresses points in here. The nice thing is this used to be when Pro first came out, it wasn't very quick on the display necessarily, and it kind of hung up with a lot of features. But this is the reason also you need a heavier graphics card to run Pro. Otherwise, it'll really bog down your PC on that. So here we have a county. This is actually Grant County, Wisconsin. It's an address project we worked on for them. So I've got my address points layer here, and I'll just toggle that off. So let's say the county has some new addresses, and I just imported this from ArcMap, and now I've got a new map in my project here. The county has some new addresses that they want added in. So he has shared, the GIS coordinator has shared those addresses with me through ArcGIS Online. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Add Data. And because I am signed into my AGO portal with my user, I see under My Content, I have a folder called Grant County. And in this case, I have Grant County site addresses. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to add those in. New addresses, I'm going to zoom to those. And you can see here's my new addresses. Now, let's say I wanted to edit those. They're living on ArcGIS Online. I wanted to edit those. If I highlight them, you'll notice if I go to Edit, Move, it's not letting me move those. What we have going on here, I wanted to just show you this quick. I'm going to pull up my ArcGIS Online account. This is where that layer, I went into my AGO account, this is where that layer is living as a hosted feature layer. However, I don't have editing enabled in my AGO account for that particular layer. So I'm going to enable editing, and then I'm going to save that. And if I go back to Pro, I'm actually going to remove, and I'm just going to re-add that, make sure it recognizes my editing capabilities. We'll add those in. And now those new addresses that they want me to plug in, I can also edit those if I need to. And I can copy and paste those into my new layer. And I'm able to do that all using data from ArcGIS Online. And I could even have this other layer of all my addresses living on ArcGIS Online, and I could add those together. So Pro gives you any function pretty much that you can edit in a local file geodatabase. It allows you to do a lot of editing and geoprocessing also on a layer that lives in ArcGIS Online, which is really handy. That's the biggest, probably the biggest thing you can do in Pro that you couldn't do in ArcMap is editing layers that are online. So that's an example of being able to import a map and be able to add data from ArcGIS Online. If I want to share data, let's say I want to share my new address point layer, I can do this. I can just share this layer by going to the Share tab, and I can share as a web layer, or I can overwrite an existing web layer. Here's those options. And you'll see if I want to publish, I can publish a layer individually, and I really like this because in ArcMap I was limited to publishing the whole map, all the table of contents. But you can publish just a single layer in your table of contents, or you can do the whole web map. And then if you're going to publish it, similar to what we're used to seeing, we have the configuration and publishing window here to share that layer to your AGO account, which I can see up here. That's where I tell which portal I'm logged into. So that's how you share information from ArcGIS Pro and share layers to your AGO or portal account. So lastly here, I want to just touch on is the ability to do layouts. So I can go to Insert, New Layout. Here's all of my options. So let's do a new 11 by 17, and this is going to create a new layout here. So we've got this new layout that I can control different things under the properties. This is also where, if you're familiar with data-driven pages, that's now called Map Series. This is where you can control all that. In this case, let's say I want a new map frame. I can click that here, and I can say, okay, I want the map that I was just in, that I had open, and I'm going to put that in my layout here, and I can just draw a layout where that's going to be. So now that adds my information in. Then I can add my city or county or organization name and logo down here, and add all kinds of dynamic features. You can see all those similar options up here in your layouts. So adding multiple layouts is nice. You can have as many as you want in a pro project. That's something that people definitely are highly in favor of with Pro, and they really like to see that functionality. So, okay, so just wrapping up here, some of the things that Pro does not do is, and Esri's phasing this one out, geometric networks is an example. Those are now being replaced with utility networks. The utility network only works in ArcGIS Pro. It does not work in ArcMap, and geometric networks are a thing of the past with ArcGIS Pro. If you've used Attribute Assistant, that has now been replaced by Attribute Rules, which is under the Data tab, Attribute Rules here. And then for a while, and they were leaving, they were missing some components of Pro. One of them was the parcel fabric, but as Bill mentioned, we have a webinar coming up. The parcel fabric is now enabled in ArcGIS Pro. So really there's very, very little, if anything, at this point that you cannot do in Pro that you can do in ArcMap. So just wanted to point that out. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop there for now. I'm going to turn it over to Bill to see if we would have any questions. So, Bill?
Yep, great, John. Let's just check here. We've got a couple starting out. Guys, if you have any more questions, go ahead and submit those. We'll take a couple minutes here to answer anything that comes our way. Let's see. Can ArcGIS Pro be installed on a machine with ArcMap?
Yeah, good question. So absolutely, you can have both running simultaneously. In fact, that's what I've got here. If I look at mine, I've got ArcMap and Pro on here. I've got ArcMap 10.7.1, I believe I have installed, and then Pro. So yeah, certainly you can do that, and I would highly recommend that to anybody, just especially if you're in that process of moving to Pro and making that transition.
Okay, and then let's see. I might have missed it, but can you still use concurrent licensing in ArcGIS Pro?
Yes, you can use concurrent licensing in Pro. If we go under Project and we go to Licensing Options, you could go and configure that here under Configuring your licensing options, and it would give you that option to utilize concurrent licensing that would pull from your portal. So.
That's it so far. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and switch over. And hey,
I'll
hold on.
just,
One just popped in. Good timing.
yep, I'm going to
uh,
pop in real quick. I just wanted to mention, oh, did you say a question, Bill?
yeah, we
Okay,
got
I'm
we got
sorry.
one more. We'll go ahead and take
Okay.
here. Does the field/domain editor work on enterprise geodatabase connections for just file GDB?
The field domain, it should work on any feature class or any connection, any database connection that you've got there. So yes, it should work with your enterprise SDE as well. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Now, go ahead, John, if you wanted to wrap up.
Okay. Yeah, just wanted to touch on some of the services we've got available for you. So we do manage GIS services. If that's something folks are interested in, we can help do any of your heavy lifting or the problems you maybe are stuck on or don't want to handle. Certainly feel free to call us for managed services. That's something we can kind of fill in the gaps, or if you're short staffed, we can help you fill in some of those needs there. We also have Kickstart packages, and one specifically for ArcGIS Pro. If you need some help making that transition, we can come on site with you, or in this case, if you'd rather do it remote, given our current circumstances, we can certainly do that. But for 3 to 4 days of high impact focused training on ArcGIS Pro for your whole organization, if you've got others you want to put in that training, we're totally fine with that. And we do have a special on that right now. That would be $5,500 for people that are attending our webinar series. And again, that's 3 to 4 days on site. Whatever you don't use of those days, we convert into a block of hours. So you can use that for any support from us that you might need over the course of the next year. So those are available. We also do lump sum projects. If you've got a project of data creation, layer creation, data cleanup, we certainly do those as well. And we do offer data collection. If you've got data you need collected, we've got GPS equipment, high accuracy, Trimble units, and we can incorporate that as well. We have a per feature pricing option for those. So just wanted to touch on those if anybody has those needs. So otherwise, I'm going to turn it back over to Bill to wrap things up.
Perfect. Thanks, Sean. Yep, I'm going to leave this last screen up here with our contact information. So again, guys, thank you so much for attending our webinar today. Please, like I said, if you're interested in any more of our webinars, go to cloudpointgeo.com/webinars and register for those. Again, specific to what we talked about today, cloudpointgeo.com/kickstart has information on those packages for migrating over to ArcGIS Pro. And then I put my email and phone number up there if anybody needs to get in touch directly. And of course, we're all over social media, so check us out there as well. We record our webinars, and we're working on a new recordings page. We're actually going to start uploading them to our YouTube channel. So anybody that attended, I'll let you guys know when that is up and ready to go. But otherwise, again, thank you so much for attending, and have a great day.